Virgin Media Shorts, championing undiscovered talent.
Hello everybody, thanks for coming to this session, which is called Behind the Budgets, which doesn't sound like the most exciting title or the most exciting element of filmmaking, but as we know on this panel, it is actually the most crucial part of filmmaking and how you make a film, because what you make and how you make it is all about the resources that you've got. Just before we investigate what it means in terms of budgeting a film and how you think about that, just by way of introduction, my name is Chris Collins. I'm a senior executive at the BFI's Film Fund. And with me today on the panel is Michael Berliner, who's a producer who's made 13 shorts to date, and the budgets of those shorts range from £200 to his most recent one, which is one that's part of the BFI's 2012 short scheme, which the budget is £50,000. So quite a range of things there. And also with me is Alex Barrett, who has made many shorts, I think. And he couldn't even remember how many, at very, very low budget levels, and has made that leap from shorts to a micro budget feature called Life Just Is, which debuted last year at the Edinburgh Film Festival, competed for the Michael Powell Award, and was released in December of last year. And I think there's quite an interesting thing to talk about there in terms of how you get these films out to an audience. When and if you actually make them. So there's two things I think we should investigate today. Is when you want to make a film, how you even begin to think about how much it should cost, and then how you translate that into reality. And the second thing really is just why? Why make films that are micro budget? Why in a way why make films at all? But why you decide you can make a film at a certain level, and what that does for you. Just to put it in context, our fund at the BFI is the largest film fund in the UK. We invest £15 million. We'll have £50 million this year to invest in feature films. We invest around £4 million in developing feature films. And the thing that we know is that films are really expensive. They really cost a lot of money. The average film in the UK is sort of around £3 to £5 million. And the films that really get out to audiences cost lots of money. The ones that we've invested that have bigger audiences are the bigger budget films, and probably the maximum budget in the UK is around £10 million. It's very, very hard to raise an independent budget above that level. And films that cost that much are films like The Woman in Black, Centurions, those kinds of films. Great Expectations, film that we invested in last year, would cost around that amount of money. And they're the films which tend to get wider releases and are aiming at sort of bigger audiences. So that's that end. And the lowest budget film that I think we've invested in is a film we made last year called Gone Too Far, which is a first film by Destiny Ekaraja. And the budget of that film is around £350,000. And what we found at our fund is that that's the sort of lower limit of what you can do when you're paying crews and having to do all the things that you need to do in terms of health and safety and delivery items and everything that you might expect from a conventional feature film. But having said that, over the last 10 years, there's been a real explosion in micro-budget filmmaking. A lot of energy, a lot of creative energy, a lot of entrepreneurial energy, a lot of talent are choosing to work at very, very low budgets to make their first feature. in America, there's been huge movements, both through the independent film movements that, kind of movies that end up in Sundance, or recently the mumblecore movement, who, people who are making films, for $20,000, $30,000, and making lots of them, and finding ways to get to audiences, and even ways to generate revenue so they can make more films. So there's a huge amount of activity in that area. And in a way, I think both of you are sort of, in a sense, working in that very micro-budget arena. Just to give you an idea of the kind of work you can make, we're going to look at something first. So it might be worth just seeing the first piece of material. We've got 2 or 3 things just to show you. The first is a short called School Portrait, which Michael produced, and which cost £200. So, Michael, why don't you give us some context for that short, and tell us about how you got, tell us the story of that short before we...
So we made it actually for the Virgin Media Shorts competition 2 years ago. The director, Nick Scott, is a good friend of mine. We'd never had the chance to work together before, and so it seemed like a nice, simple way to collaborate together. The prep only took, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks, and shot it with a couple of weeks to spare before the deadline. Yeah, we made it for £200, which was basically spending money on catering and a small amount of expenses. And when the budget is that small, instead of budgeting kind of scientifically with what the cash value should be for everything, it's all about looking at what you've got, what you can achieve for nothing or for very little. And the film went on to do really well for us. Instead of going the festival route, we went for an online release. Vimeo featured it as a staff pick, and we ended up getting 1 million views in 10 days, the Christmas before last, and a lot of great features, the Huffington Post, Gizmodo, Wired, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, let's look at it, and then let's talk a bit more about it afterwards.
Right, come on then. Come in, sit down. No. Stop smiling. Right, we're going to do something different today. Let's call it a reality check. I want you to repeat after me. University tuition fees.
University tuition fees.
Okay, good. The banking crisis means I'll never afford a home. Go on.
The banking crisis will never afford
No. Just say crisis.
Crisis.
Yeah. Have you filled out your tax return? Why not?
I don't want to.
Very good. Is it a koala or an elephant?
A koala.
Get rid of it. Climate change. Boom. Congestion charge. There isn't a pet heaven.
Oh, and another thing, you don't get pocket money. You have to work hard every day. Look, will you just stop smiling, please? All right, fine. Look, I've got all day. All right. Did you know that 60% of marriages end in divorce? Yeah? 2 people meet, get on really well, and then they start growing apart, and they grow further and further apart until one of them leaves you, takes off your stuff, and your house, maybe your kids. Oh, God. You are just not going to stop smiling, are you? Okay, let's get on with it. All right, give it your best shot. Oh, I suppose I can always get a new house. Hey, is your mum single? All right, well, keep me posted.
So, Michael, where did the money go?
Where did the money go?
Yeah.
as I say, pretty much it was just catering. It was some pizzas and expenses. I think when I was thinking how are we going to make this film, what have we got and what do we need, I thought that the main challenge from a production point of view was having all of those kids. I've done a few different shorts with kids. I work with another director called Mustafa Kasey Betty, who always has kids in his films. So, they're very expensive. Casting them, their parents coming to set with them, chaperones. And so I thought the only way that we can do this on no money is by going to the kids instead. And when I was a kid, I actually wanted to be an actor. And I went to this Saturday morning drama club called Stagecoach. I don't know if anyone's heard of it. And so that was my immediate thought, Stagecoach. So researched all of the stagecoaches in London, picked 3 that geographically made sense for the director and I, just because we had to shortlist it somehow. Contacted all 3 of them. All 3 of them were potentially up for it. Recce'd all 3 of them. And actually the thing that became the most important thing for us was the person running the stagecoach, how amenable were they to us? And 2 of them were raising all of the, they were happy to do it, but they were raising all of the problems and saying you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. And the third one, which was Stagecoach Shirley, which is in Croydon, the guy thought the script was amazing and he was like, oh my God, I really want to help you to do this. It's going to be great for the kids. Just give me the release forms. I'll talk to the parents and sort all of it for you. So we went for him. So how it worked was while the drama club was on, it's in 2 sessions in the morning and afternoon, and we were there just for the one day. We'd been there the previous weekend, picked the kids that we'd liked, and they'd got their release forms signed. And we just, there was no waiting for them. We just went and took them out of their classes one by one as we needed them and shot with them. So there was no cost whatsoever. The only cost was our very small unit, which was 6 or 7 of us, including mine and the director's girlfriends who were both helping out. So it was incredibly lo-fi. And that's basically how it worked.
And when you started that, did you have an idea of what it was going to cost? I mean, did you have a budget, or did you think this is what we're going to do, and then hopefully do it for as little as possible? Or did you say, well, I've got £100, Nick's got £100, and we've got to make it for that? I mean, which way round did it go?
I mean, I did budget it, but not quite how I'd budget another one of my shoots. I mean, I think if you've got the money, then there's quite a scientific way to budget. Everyone's got their set rates. Certain things cost set things, and you boot into Movie Magic or whatever and itemize everything. Whereas with this, the starting point was we can get this, and this for free. What do the other things cost? Fortunately, once we'd found the right school, which was the big question mark about how we were going to do that, everything else we could nearly do for free. I mean, on my other shorts as well, the costs that you really cannot avoid are catering and expenses. And I think the higher proportion of your budget that is catering and expenses, for me, the more you've squeezed it to the absolute limit of what you could possibly do. When I say this kind of thing, I really don't mean to sound kind of exploitative in the sense that let's get everything on the screen to the detriment of everyone else. I'm just saying, if that's the amount of money that you have, then you need to try and do it that way, unless you're going to hold out for more money. But in this instance, this was just, a small collaborative, creative thing, and we had the means to do it on very little.
And who paid the £200?
It was all Nick, actually.
Was it?
But Nick's got gets better pay than me. So.
Does he? Good.
Yeah.
So he should pay.
Yeah.
So Alex, tell us about your shorts, why you made them, and how you started making them, and how you where do you thought you were going with them?
Sure. So I started making shorts alongside my A levels. I did a sitting guild course in TV production, I think it was called. So we were shooting stuff on VHS in those days and editing on VHS to VHS, which was great as a sort of learning tool. And then I went to university, did a 3-year film degree, so made quite a lot of shorts while I was there, both in my course and kind of in my spare time. And then after I graduated, the first thing I did, really, in a way, was actually start working on Life Just Is, which was the feature that came out last year. But I realised straight away that I wasn't actually ready to make a feature. I wanted more experience of working with actors. I wanted more experience of sort of working with crew members. Because a lot of the stuff I did at uni, it wasn't one of these unis where we'd make a £50,000 grad films. They were small kind of personal films that we'd made. I think the most expensive was maybe £1,500. So kind of still small. So I just wanted a lot more experience. So then I kind of was alongside sort of working on my feature, I set up a small production company and just basically made a load of short films with kind of people that I'd been to university with. And then gradually they kind of got a bit bigger, and I made this quite big film for, I think the budget was £1,500–2,000. And it wasn't a particularly pleasant experience, I suppose. It took a long time and I wasn't very happy with the result. And while that was kind of still ongoing, I then started making these really small films, which is, I think we're going to see one. And so these films were kind of made for like £10 type things. They were really cheap. The most expensive, I did make one that was about 200, which was all kind of expenses and food, like Michael's, and we hired a camera on that one. So it was kind of just really me wanting to work up to the feature, and each one was kind of, okay, well, I want to do this or I want to do that, and how can I train myself to get towards the feature? And, you know, this was all stuff that was kind of self-funded, I suppose. Like, it didn't even really occur to me, I suppose, at that stage that I would want to apply. I was just making these small films that were almost like training exercises. And so that was kind of why I was making stuff, and that's why I was making it cheaply, I suppose.
And did you feel when you got to make your first feature that you had done enough, that you were prepared enough, or was it still a shock?
I mean, I suppose I reached that stage. So there were kind of like whole years where I didn't touch the feature, and then I kind of came back to it, and I realised that I still really believed in it, and I felt like that was the project I wanted to make. And then I suppose I just reached a point with the shorts where I felt like the next stage was either to make a really big short and kind of spend the type of sums that, you know, Michael's just made, to spend sort of 50,000, or make a really cheap feature. And I just kind of decided, I don't know whether this was the right decision, but at the time I decided that it would be better for my career to make a cheap feature. And, you know, I spent less on my feature than Michael spent on his last short. And so I suppose I just kind of decided at that stage, it's not like I was ready for a feature, because I don't think anyone is ever ready. And I would say that no matter how many shorts you do, making a feature is just something totally different altogether. And I don't think really any amount of shorts can prepare you. So yeah, I guess I felt like I was ready to dive in. Whether I was actually ready or not, I don't know. I mean, the longest thing I'd done prior to that was a 35-minute Second World War film that I didn't direct, but I kind of... the whole crew was 2 people, and it was kind of a massive production. You know, we had like army tanks and army tents, and it was a really kind of big production, but it was someone else's film, and I was kind of just doing everything else. But even that, you know, when you approach a character piece, you know, my film is a character piece, and there are just little things like, okay, so towards the end of the film we have a sequence where someone is effectively breaking down in tears, and it's, you know, we were shooting over 14 days. First day of the shoot has one scene of that sequence, and it has to cut right in with the scene that we were shooting on the last day of the schedule. And so just little things like maintaining the emotional consistency of those actors, you know, you don't really have to worry about that if you're shooting over 3 days on a short. And so there were just kind of all these things that, as a first-time feature director, you kind of have to grapple with, which I don't really think shorts play for. I mean, maybe if you're making a 50,000 one and shooting over 9 days, maybe that prepares you, I don't know.
Sounds like he's sort of practically made a feature anyway, so we'll see how that works out.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you how you worked with producers? I mean, did you have producers on those shorts? I mean, you had several producers on your feature film, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was different for every short that I made. I suppose there weren't necessarily a set pattern. So the stuff that I made straight out of uni with this small production company, we had, there were 3 of us that set up the company, and nominally one was the producer, I was the writer-director, and the third guy was kind of production designer and special effects. And so in theory, at least, that guy was doing the producing, and you know, he did. So he was kind of producing some of the early stuff. And then there was some stuff that I produced, there was some stuff that I co-produced. There was a short that I produced that didn't direct for someone that had co-produced one of my shorts. And then there were kind of some shorts, like the one that we'll see shortly, where I think nominally maybe one person is credited as producer, but it was kind of, in a way, no one really produced it, and in a way we kind of all did. I think on the one you see, it just says a film by me and someone else, and I suppose we kind of just did it together. I mean, one thing that I found, and no discredit to people like Michael, who I'm sure are fantastic to work with, but a lot of the time, and I know this is true with a lot of writer-directors that I talk to, that when you're working on no money, the writer-director always becomes a co-producer in the project. And I think it's simply that if you're writing and directing something, no one will ever care as much about your stuff as you do. Unless maybe, I suppose, if it's a project that someone else gives you from an idea and you write and direct it around that idea. But certainly, in my experience, and no discredit to any of the producers that I've worked with, they've all been very good and very helpful. But, that sort of, when it's your thing, you're writing and directing, you live it and you breathe it, and you don't stop thinking
I agree,
about
there's a special problems for producers working with writer-directors. I think you did a panel on it yesterday, Michael, didn't you? Which I could probably spend a week talking about. But let's have a look at the film.
Sure.
So tell us a little bit about it. It's called Hungerford.
Its full title is Hungerford Symphony of a London Bridge.
Yeah.
And it was made really quickly. I think from start to finish was about a month, or not even. We shot it in like half a day, one day. And it was an idea that I'd had. I'm a really big fan of silent cinema, and in the kind of early teens, there was a genre of film called city symphonies. And so me and some friends just thought, well, wouldn't it be cool to do a city symphony, a film in that style? And then it actually turned out that there was a competition that kind of wanted something that, I can't remember what the competition was now, but it was something that we felt like the film would fit. So we basically made this film for this competition. We got shortlisted but didn't win, but then we were able to kind of submit it to Edinburgh and those kind of places. So it was something that was made very cheaply. There were 4 of us that worked on the whole film. I think we made it for basically the cost of 2 mini DV tapes. So, everyone just kind of travelled up. The cameraman owned the equipment. I did the edit with equipment I had. I think we all bought packed lunch or something. So there were no expenses, basically.
Not even catering costs.
Not even catering costs.
Yeah.
And, the DP lives in Cambridge, so I guess he had travel costs, but it wasn't...
Yeah.
It just kind of wasn't an issue. I mean, we were friends. Me, the kind of producer-writer, and the DP, we all went to uni together. The composer had done another film that I'd worked on. And so it was just a kind of, I suppose, a passion project in a way. And just this week we started talking about maybe turning it into a feature. So there are even kind of legs potentially, but it was made a few years ago now.
And I think the good thing about people bringing their own packed lunch is that they can't complain about the catering.
Yeah, exactly.
Which otherwise they do. So let's have a look at Hungerford. Very good. I'm guessing you didn't clear the music rights for...
It was the original piece that was written for the film,
Oh, okay.
so we took clear the music.
Very
yeah.
impressive.
Thank you.
Great. So what, perhaps you can talk a little bit about what that's done for you, what those films did, or maybe that film did for you in terms of getting to the next stage.
I mean, I suppose, like I say, a lot of the shorts that I made were made for me to learn particular things. And then this one, I suppose, is more of just an experiment. And I kind of accidentally fell into becoming a slightly more experimental filmmaker than I had planned. If you see my feature, it's a drama, basically. But I started kind of getting, I think it was this film maybe that got accepted into Edinburgh, and it played in the experimental strand. And then some of my other films and this film at other festivals also started getting put in the kind of experimental strand. And that was kind of an interesting thing for me to go, well, am I an experimental filmmaker? And I think I kind of circled them for a little bit, trying to figure out whether I was an experimental filmmaker. And I think I've decided that I'm not, although I am working on an experimental film at the moment. So it kind of comes and it goes. But this film, did quite well. It played, I think, at over 20 festivals. It won a couple of awards, 3 awards, I think. Played at Edinburgh, played at Tribeca, in fact, because it won an online festival, which then meant that it played at Tribeca. And so just, I suppose it was kind of experience, but it was also, it's just little things like, so this played at Edinburgh, I think in 2009 or something, 2008, it was a while back. And when I was there at that festival, I met a producer who's now attached to one of the features that I'm working on now. And so even though there wasn't a sort of direct anything directly, I suppose, it's just, if you have a film that's getting out there, it's playing in festivals, then you get to meet people and it gets you onto the circuit.
Yeah. It's unfortunately the person with the longest hair is just like the new wind effect that we brought in.
Wind swept.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's great. Why don't we watch a trailer for your feature, and then we can talk about micro-budget features, which I think is the area that perhaps where you're definitely in, and maybe Michael's moving into. Can you give us just a little bit of context for the budget of the film? I don't know if you can say the exact number, but just give us a broad kind of idea of what it costs and how you went about deciding how much it would cost.
Sure.
And did you start with a script?
Yeah, I mean, so there was a script that like I said, I started writing in 2005 after I graduated, and then I would kind of come back to that periodically amongst my shorts. There were kind of whole years that went by when I didn't touch it.
7 years.
Yeah. I mean, very on and off, and I think it was 2008 that I started working on it properly, and we shot in 2010, and then finished in January 2012, premiered June 2012, distributed December 2012. I mean, the budget was kind of up and down. It was written to be made cheaply. A lot of it takes place indoors in people's houses. It's about a group of friends in their early 20s. So it was kind of very deliberately constructed to be done on no money. I suppose, I was being influenced by the mumblecore films, the guys, what they were doing in America on no money. And my kind of aim was to take a mumblecore film and kind of smash it together with like a Bergman film. I was, really into sort of, Bergman and Carl Theodor Dreyer, who's my favourite filmmaker, and so all these kind of art house titans. So that's kind of what I was aiming, was to, smash mumblecore and existential art house cinema together. And
somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. So we knew that it could be made cheaply, and then there were times when I was kind of working, with some of my producers, and some of the figures that were going around I thought were too big. I'd originally, the year I graduated from uni, someone in the year above me made a feature for $3,000. And so I was thinking, that's what I want to do with mine. I want to shoot it really cheaply. And in the end, we spent quite a bit more on it than that.
So what was the first figure that your producers came up with?
I can't even remember now. I remember pitching it to Film 4 at 125.
Okay.
And then I remember there was a budget that went around that I think was 70.
Yeah.
And then I know that when we actually came to production, we wanted 60 so that we could pay everyone minimum wage. And we figured out that we could pay everyone minimum wage apart from people like me and maybe the editor that were going to be in it for the long haul, that we could pay everyone minimum wage on 60,000, and in the end we didn't make that. It didn't.
Because you couldn't raise the money, or
yeah, basically, and I think what happened was. So then we kind of got to the stage where we were like, okay, we're not really getting anywhere, getting to the money. Why don't we cast it? And then we kind of just had this amazing response from the actors. And we were like, wow, we've got a project that people really like. The actors all love the script. There are far more people that want to be seen than we have time to see and all this. And then we started attaching people, and we got Paul Nichols, we got Jane Weisner. And at that time we had Jenna Louise Coleman as well, who is now Doctor Who's companion and ultimately wasn't in the film. But we kind of had all these people attached, and we were like, okay, now the pressure is on. We don't want to lose this cast. And so I think then we even started kind of putting dates in the diary and kind of like, well, maybe we can shoot here. And in the end, we kind of, we didn't manage to get all the money we needed, but we knew, obviously on that 60k budget, we knew how much was salary. And so we kind of reached the point where we went, well, what if we don't pay people and we do it for much less? And that was kind of what we ended up doing. And so it wasn't like, let's just not pay people. It was kind of like, and I should say that the actors did get paid very minimal, but the 6 leads did get paid. No one else did. And so we just reached that point where we were like, okay, well, we want to make it anyway. But I think like one of the things that I felt that we did right with the film is we weren't then saying to people, okay, well, we want you to come and work for free. We want you for 3 months, and we want you to have done 6 features and have 10 years experience. We said, okay, we're going to shoot it in 14 days. Doesn't matter if you haven't done a feature before. And actually, like a large percentage of our crew had either only done like 1 feature that they'd just come off, or they hadn't made a feature before. And so it was basically like a really steep learning curve. And I didn't feel like, as a writer-director that was making a micro-budget film that was his first feature, that I could ask people that were really experienced to give me their time for free. And so everyone that was there because they wanted to be there. And I think that was really key to the kind of successful making of the film. And people have now obviously gone on to do other
I agree
features.
that is critical if you're doing it at that level, because sometimes you can get people who are experienced to say they're going to do it, and then they turn up, and then it's a different approach. It does require special attitude, I think. You've got to want to really do it. But I think it's hard, right? I mean,
it is.
Even shooting for 14 days is kind of tough.
Yeah, but I think we also felt like if we wanted to give that experience, we wanted to give the opportunity to people that needed it.
Yeah.
And I think realistically, unless you're very lucky, a lot of people on their first feature don't get paid, and so why not just give other people that opportunity to get a feature on their CV?
Okay. Well, let's look at the trailer, and then we can talk about it a bit more.
Tell me though, seriously, if you don't believe in God, what do you believe in? Surely it's better to believe in something than nothing.
So you and Claire seem very close, you know?
Yeah, we are. We're good mates.
And?
And nothing.
Second chance to get, but I must go. But no, I never listened to you. Do
you think Claire's okay?
And now
This isn't what I spent 4 years studying for.
Tell me about it.
Mate, God was invented because we didn't understand the way things worked.
No, I never listened to you. Had lost your spark, and now
We're good mates, you know?
I could choose your life.
Don't want to mess that up.
I could choose your life. I could choose your life.
Good. So just one quick question. I mean, do you think it would be a different, I was going to say better, but maybe just different film if you'd had more money?
It's something that I've actually given quite a lot of thought to, I think, is this question. And I mean, I suppose in a way the answer is no. You know, it was written to be made cheaply, and despite perhaps the limitations of, you know, the film as a whole, you know, it's not a perfect film, obviously, but I feel like it is the film that I set out to make. You know, it kind of was. I mean, you know, I suppose there are things like we have a big scene in the film that I think goes on for 7 minutes, and the camera went down halfway through filming the scene, so we only managed to shoot half the coverage. And so obviously if we'd have had a bigger budget, we'd have been able to recover that. You know, there were days that were frantic, and there were other days when we had to drop half the coverage because we just didn't have the time. But I mean, luckily, the style that I was going for, 50% of the film is done in one shot, scenes in one shot, and I think another 25% of the scenes done in 2 shots. So it's a very kind of sparse style anyway. And I think regardless of how much money I'd have had, you know, I wouldn't have changed my style. So, I mean, I suppose if we had more money, you know, we would have paid everyone, which would have been lovely. Maybe some of the tracking shots would have been smoother. You know, because we'd have had more time to kind of get stuff right, and maybe some of the scenes we would have gone for another take, and things. But essentially,
but in terms of the kind of film it is, I mean, is it the kind of film that you ultimately want to keep on making as a filmmaker? Does it represent that, or can you see yourself moving into different areas of filmmaking? And this is the one that you can make at this point, or not? Sure.
I mean, I think. Like looking at the slate of stuff that I'm working on at the moment, I'm working on a whole range of stuff. Everything is very different from each other, and I mean I do have one project that's a coming of age thing, set in 1997 in Aberdeen that someone else has written, and they sent it to me because they saw Life Just Is and recognised certain affinities, and so I suppose that's maybe more of a continuation, but at the same time that's a very different film because Life Just Is deliberately very chaste, and there's, you know, that's kind of about people's lust for life, but also, you know, sexual lust. And so, I mean, I suppose the answer is no, because I want, like my shorts, like if you see more than one of my shorts, you can see that every single one I've done is very different. And I suppose with my features, I don't want to repeat myself, and I want everyone to be very different.
You talked about your influences being Bergman and
Dreyer.
Yeah. You know, in a way, Bergman is like the analyst of sort of relationships par excellence. So in a way, maybe there is a line, you know, clear line, you know, between what you're doing.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that if you look at, I mean, there was a quote from Dreyer, and he said something like, because he made, get the order right, I think he made Joan of Arc, and then he made Vampire. And he was talking about how he never wanted to make 2 films in a row that were in the same tenor as each other. And I think that that's kind of how I see myself. And I think that there are certain, I don't want to overthink this, but, you know, there are certain things that obviously interest me. Stylistically, I think I've kind of found my style. But that doesn't mean my next film will resemble Life Just Is, because my style is all about content and all about character. And so if my next film has, you know, different content and different character, then visually it will be very different from Life Just Is. So, I mean, I hope that Life Just Is the seeds of what comes next. But I hope also at the same time that what I do next will be very different, because I don't want to be pigeonholed as someone that just makes small, intimate dramas.
Okay. We're going to open up for questions in a minute, but I just want to kind of talk to Michael about, you know, at the beginning I said sort of, you know, there's 2 questions like how you do it. You know, and I think part of that is approach and attitude, and practicalities in the way you've thought about how to do it is, you know, is clearly, you know, appropriate. But the second one is, what's the point? You know, why make a micro-budget feature? I mean, for you, where do you, I mean, in terms of the first feature that you produce, what do you see the level of budget is? And, you know, are you going to keep working in that micro-budget arena?
I mean, I guess how I see it is you have to balance your ambitions with expectations of what executives and funders might think is an acceptable level of jump. I mean, I'm not going to be going around trying to fund a feature, you know, that's got a budget of 5 or 6 million, you know, as long as we get cast member A on board. So no, I mean, the projects that I'm pursuing are ones that I think are achievable for a producer of my level. So, I mean, I mean, I've been working on a project which was shortlisted for iFeatures last year, which, had we made it through that, it would have been 350 grand. So, you know, we're still looking at that kind of level. Up to one that I'm working on with Mustafa Betty, this filmmaker. He was one of the Screen International Stars of Tomorrow last year, and he's just on this BFI short with me. The feature that I'm talking about with him is probably going to be between 1 and 2, and I think that's the upper end of what I can achieve right now. I mean, I think there's this cool graph. I think it's in the Guerrilla Filmmakers Handbook, which is of control, like your own creative control versus the budget. And you know, as the budget goes up and up, the control goes down and down and down. So that there's an element of that which makes you think, as long as it can be achieved on a lower budget, and you can make the film that you want to make in the way that you did, then why not go that route if it's more immediately accessible to you? I think as long as you feel that the film is really achievable on budget B instead of budget A, but you can make it 2 years sooner to advance yours and the director's careers, then you should go for it, as long as it's not a major compromise for you.
Okay, good.
Can I just add something, actually? I mean, one thing I think for micro-budget films, another reason to make it is also responsibility. And I think, you know, with Life Just Is, we knew realistically that its commercial prospects were, you know, it wasn't a film aimed at a mass audience. And, you know, if you're getting investors or, you know, you're making a film, you have a responsibility to then try and recoup that funding. And so there's no point in making a film for 10 million if it's only going to gross 1, and I think you have to be realistic. And so I think that was another reason why we wanted to keep the budget for Life Just Is low, was so that we could, you know, hopefully make a financially viable film, you know, which I suppose remains to be seen, but hopefully it will recoup.
No, I agree. I think when these things work, they work really well. They get the director noticed. They make a lot of noise, and they can be fantastically helpful for people's careers. And your film's obviously clearly a success in that way. What I would say is a note of warning to anybody out there who's planning to make a micro-budget feature is there's lots of these films being made, and you know, lots of them come to our door for completion funding or you know, other assistance. And the sad thing is, not many people have thought it through to the point that you guys have, and haven't done enough, you know, haven't literally made enough shorts before, so that a lot of that work is just not going to get out because it's not strong enough. And a lot of money and a lot of energy goes into that area. So it can work against people's careers as much as it can help them. So you know, there is a fine balance, I think. It always seems to me that if you make a short and it doesn't work, you could sort of bury it and you could just make another one. Sometimes with a feature, there's a sort of expectation that you've got to get it out, and people judge you in a very particular way, or judge you against all the other features that are made. So, you know, it is a tricky area, I think, and I think you really do have to think about what you want to make and whether you can make it for the money you can raise.
You know, there's another graph that's stuck in my head, actually, that I think Paul Welsh, who's a producer from Scotland, showed in a presentation once. It was this graph, I don't know where he'd got the data from, but it was of first-time filmmakers versus second, third, fourth. And the bar chart, you know, it was like first-time filmmaker, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. So, no, that is true. Make sure it's the right time.
But there are great examples. Well, your film was, you know, I'm sure you'll make another film, but, you know, London to Brighton, Shifty, these films which are being made in the UK at very, very low level, low budgets, but are really, you know, launching filmmakers. So when you get it right, it can be absolutely, you know, a huge sort of launch for your career. Can I ask a question of the audience, actually? Just how many people here are filmmakers? How many are directors? How many producers? Has anybody made a micro-budget feature film? Does anybody want to? Good.
How many people are applying to Virgin Media Shorts this year? Pretty good.
Great.
I guess one...
Okay, there's a question here. Okay.
Go on.
Oh, sorry, there's a microphone coming here.
With the city soundscape one, one, did you run into any problems with filming permissions and stuff? Because London can be notoriously difficult to film in sometimes.
We did actually get permission to shoot on the bridge. We got it from Westminster Council, so it was really easy actually. We basically just sent them a thing. I mean, I think in a way that's the other time when sometimes not having any money is helpful as well, because say, look, we're making this on no money. Can we have permission? And we knew that it was just going to be one camera and a tripod, so we knew it wasn't we needed to shut the bridge down or anything.
But I think an important thing to say with filming locations is as long as you're, I think a tripod does count as setting down equipment, but if you're not setting down equipment or causing an obstruction, and as long as you're not in some special restricted site, it's not illegal for you to just go and film. I think often, for insurance and various other reasons, it's great to be able to get the piece of paper. But, if you're a tiny guerrilla unit and you're not setting any equipment down, it's not illegal for you to just go and film.
I should add, actually, that the guy that shot Hungerford, he was kind of running a sort of small company, and I think it was through that he had public liability insurance, because I think we were asked for public liability insurance.
Okay.
But it was also for quite a long time after I left uni, one of the guys that was in my class had started working at the uni, and so we were able to use their public liability insurance for a lot of our shoots as well, because that is kind of the big thing. But yeah, also on my feature we had, we did have some exterior stuff, and we didn't pay for any of that. We got permission, but we weren't charged anything for any of that. But again, the public liability insurance is...
Just for information, Michael, how much does public liability insurance cost?
Well, when I've got insurance, I normally get public liability, which is protecting obviously the public and against being sued. Employees liability, which is protecting the people that you're employing. And I try to get producers indemnity as well, which basically protects the producer in a variety of ways against getting sued. On my BFI short, it cost me, I think it was £795, all inclusive. You can get it cheaper than that. It really depends on your equipment hire. The thing was, on ours, we really did have quite an expensive package. It was an Arri Alexa shooting package with great lenses and a big lighting kit. So immediately to the insurers, it's in a kind of feature film budget category, really. Annoyingly, there isn't a massive amount of difference between a short-term insurance deal, a week or 2 weeks, and an annual. So if you can stretch in your budget to getting an annual, then that will help you down the line as long as you're going to be doing more shooting that year.
The other thing that you might want insurance for, certainly if you're making a feature, is your rushes. So under our insurance terms for Life Just Is for the feature, we had to have 3 copies of the rushes stored in 3 different locations. And actually, in post-production, the only expense that we had was hard drives, and we really did get through a lot of hard drives, because when you're shooting a feature in high def, obviously the rushes are taking up a certain amount of material. And we did actually have a problem with some of our rushes, where we had these spots on the image, and we almost made a claim. In the end, we decided it would be cheaper to get the spots erased, because we had an excess that we would have to pay, and in the end, we actually got them removed for free. But yeah, that's something that just to throw out there.
But insurance is really important, because things, as we know, do go very wrong on films. It's amazing how in filmmaking somehow it's the one area of life where things go wrong more than any other place.
I guess just
and can go disastrously wrong. Just take this question down.
Yeah. Hi. So a question for Michael. I love your film, by the way. I've seen it before.
Thank you.
At a festival. With that film, you got Vimeo Pick of the Week, and that gave you such a big boost marketing-wise. Mm. So I was just interested in how you managed to get that. Is that kind of just, there must be thousands of videos put onto Vimeo every week. How do they choose? They can't watch every single one of them.
Yeah, they don't have any submission system. Yeah. How it worked with me was a filmmaker friend of mine, not the director of this, knew one of the admins who pointed them to look at one of his short films, which was on my Vimeo account. And after she'd looked at that, she looked through my other short films, including School Portrait, and unfortunately they weren't interested in the one that my filmmaker had directed them to, but they spotted mine, and they didn't tell me at all. I don't know if you have Vimeo videos, you get a notification when your video's been added to a new group or page, and I just got this notification through saying your video has been added to Vimeo staff picks, and I was like, oh, it's quite nice, and so that's how that worked. I mean, I guess for getting things in front of the Vimeo staff, I would recommend looking through Vimeo staff-picked videos and seeing which admins have commented on the videos. So, you can spot pretty easily that the people who are obviously the curators, all of them are quite active on Vimeo, and I see quite often people are sharing links with them, and they're pretty good at interacting with the community on Twitter. Another thing I would suggest is, I don't know if you've heard of the website Short of the Week, which is run by one of the Vimeo admins, and you can send shorts into them. They have a kind of submission system, and bearing in mind the title, they feature one short a week, and definitely there's some sharing that goes on between Vimeo and Short of the Week.
Yeah. So thank you.
So we've only got a few minutes left. I was just going to ask Alex really to talk about the distribution of Life Just Is, because I think that's an area for this kind of film, which is now available for people in a way that wasn't until very recently. So can you just talk us through what happened in terms of getting the film out and distribution?
Sure. I mean, I suppose one thing I should say, based on your comment earlier about people coming to you for completion funds, is that we always had a kind of exit strategy. Like, we knew how we were going to complete the film. We knew that we had the money in place. We didn't want to run out of money halfway through. But we also kind of had a plan for distribution. I mean, obviously, these things change. And what was interesting, actually, with Life Just Is that, like I say, I kind of started writing it in 2005, started properly in 2008, shot 2010, finished 2012. And in those years, the distribution landscape changed so rapidly that anything that we wrote in terms of a kind of exit strategy or market plan was just, was changing. It was kind of rubbish by the time we'd written it. But we were kind of very aware of online and, self-distribution, all the kind of new models. But we decided that we would try first the kind of traditional route. We never necessarily wanted a sales agent for the UK, because we felt like for the UK at least we would be able to go straight to the distributors. And so we held a screening in Soho that we didn't pay for. We managed to blag that. So we had like an HD cam projection at a top screen in Soho.
And did you invite all the distributors?
Yeah, and so we spent like a month researching
and did they all come?
And inviting people. No. So we basically sent emails to pretty much every distributor we thought would be vaguely interested. Maybe, I can't remember the stats, but maybe like a third of them replied or something. And then like maybe half of those turned up. Some of them walked out, it was kind of those typical industry screenings where, it's not a nice screening to be in if you're a filmmaker, if it's an industry one. But it was basically off the back of that screening. So that was like really early on. It was the day before our casting crew screening. So even our casting crew hadn't seen it yet. And it was basically off the back of that we got an offer. And there was a little bit of interest from someone else. And then having that offer, we were able to kind of go to all the ones that hadn't shown up and said, look, we've got this offer, can we send you a screener? So then we sent out some screeners. And we spent kind of a while, we really wanted to make sure that was, the right offer to go for. And in the end, it was the one that we decided to go for. We kind of kept it secret until Cannes, and then announced it during Cannes, so that we could get in Screen Daily while we were in Cannes. And I think that same year we were having a market screening as well in Cannes. Okay. So we were able to then, use that piece in Screen Daily to drive people to the market screening.
And that distributor was independent?
Yeah, it was independent distribution. And so they picked us up for the UK and Ireland for home video. So it basically went, it's on like every video on demand platform. We just added a new one yesterday, which is something where you can watch the film directly on Facebook. So we have two now that, you can watch the film without even leaving Facebook. It's on DVD, readily available everywhere that's out there on DVD. And then they kind of took a non-exclusive theatrical deal was in their thing. So we thought, okay, well, we know that they're not really going to put us out theatrically. So we started then talking to distributors that were theatrical only, because there are a few out there that will just take your theatrical rights. So we started talking to some of them. But I'd also given a screener to Jeff Andrew, who's the head programmer at the BFI, and I'd given it to him actually just for feedback. I'd kind of started talking to him a little bit on Twitter because I run a Cole Theodore Dreyer fan account on Twitter, and they'd done a Dreyer season.
Is Jeff in that club?
He is, yeah. So we were, because he'd done a talk as an intro to their season, because they'd just done a Dreyer season. So I gave him a DVD, and I was like, look, I'd just like some feedback, maybe a quote that we can use to publicise it. And then a few months later, we were still looking for the actual, called him up and said, would you actually be interested in showing it? And then eventually he did, and so he gave us a 2-week run. So we actually had to push the DVD date back 2 weeks because they'd already programmed the month that we were looking for, so we pushed the DVD back. And then from there, once you've got the BFI on board, you can go to other people, manage to set up other screenings around London as well.
And the only advertising costs was £50 for the poster, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we basically we ran a poster competition, which ended up being like a really big success, and this was to design our poster. So we kind of had a poster design from that competition that we'd run, which was really good publicity for us, kind of around the world. And so we basically got some of those printed out. We put them in like the lobbies of the cinemas. Along with the kind of poster competition, we've done a load of other online marketing. Probably don't have time to go into that now, but if you want, it's kind of out there, or you can send me an email. But we have a blog, we have a YouTube channel, Twitter, and all of that, and we'd been very kind of active since before the film was shot, I think, even in kind of promoting the film online, because we knew that we weren't making it in a vacuum, and we needed to kind of be building up that audience.
Who did all that work? Who did that?
I mean, mainly me, but we had a social media marketing girl who devised most of it, and she did a lot of it as well, actually. Like, so when we were on set, Jane Weisner, who was kind of one of the better-known actresses. She was in Sweeney Todd. She played Johnny Depp's daughter, and she did a video blog for us that she shot, and our social media marketing girl Justine edited for us, and that was going up during the shoot. So all from pre-production, and then in post-production, I was doing blogs, and we were just keeping people up to date, and so that was kind of our marketing. It was all kind of done for free online.
Great. No, I think you've got to think about that.
Yeah, you do, and I think I've never actually asked Independent whether that was a factor, but the reason why we did it is because we felt like if we could show to a distributor that we had interest, then we would get a distribution deal.
Smart move. Any last questions from anyone? Oh, I'm down there.
I'll ask a question of Alex this time, and that is how. I'm a filmmaker myself, and I make short films at zero budget, and I'm always concerned about making something bigger. I feel like I need to have, a chunk of money to then go to, maybe more reputable casting agents rather than maybe use my friends to act. So your budget was 60,000 in the end, and how did you cast that?
It was much less than that.
Okay.
Actually.
Did you?
We cast before we knew what the budget was going to be. Which I suppose in some ways helped us because we were effectively approaching agents and going, we don't know what the salary is going to be, we don't know what we're going to pay people, but here's the script anyway. And I think we were lucky. We had a very reputable casting director on board, so that was useful. All the agents knew her, which I guess made them look at the script. But we also just got lucky in that people really responded to the script. With a lot of my shorts, we'd send the script out to actors, and maybe 50% of the people that we sent the script to would come back and say, I want to audition. And with this, it was more like 95%. And so we suddenly had all these people that wanted to be seen, and we had to add casting days, and it was a really long process. But essentially, that's what we did. We had the casting director, she sent it out through Spotlight. The agent sent in CVs. I looked through all of the CVs, and then we sort of, chose who we wanted to come in. And, we were lucky. I never thought when I was writing it, I'd have Paul Nichols or someone that had worked with Johnny Depp. And we kind of saw people that were much bigger than I had imagined when I was, sitting at my parents' kitchen table writing it. So it was luck, I suppose. But also, it kind of came down to the script. And actually, what was interesting for me is even though I'd made all these shorts, no one ever really actually asked to see them, and it was always kind of an afterthought. It was like, oh yes, I'm producing this film, by the way, can I see some of your shorts? And actually what people wanted to talk about was, you know, the script and my vision for the script, and that was kind of what people were interested in, rather than what I'd done before, which I always thought was kind of an interesting
That is unusual, because I think generally having a piece of work to show, people often want to see that, to see what the quality is. I'm suggesting. Good. Well, maybe Johnny Depp next time.
Hopefully.
Maybe you wouldn't want him, but anyway, let's see. I think that's it, really. So thanks very much to Michael and Alex for sharing their insights into their work, and I hope it was useful for you guys. Well done, guys.
Virgin Media Shorts, championing undiscovered talent.